again, everyone. It's Rigas again from the Practice Research Agency, where for, many years we have been in the business of pack testing, packaging testing, packaging assessment, call it what you will. And for those years, packaging testing has been one of the bedrocks, one of the foundations of ad hoc market research, and not just for our agency, but I imagine for many agencies that are focused more on ad hoc type of research and projects. And we have done a lot of pack testing over so many categories, over so many years, whether it be in the context of doing it in focus groups or depth interviews or in ethnographic interviews or in quantitative or even recently in qualantive, where we're using AI bots in our surveys as well to collect qual information. We've been doing packaging testing in all of those guises for many years, and we're not Robinson Crusoe there. This had, like I said, has been one of the foundations of market research. I guess that gives us quite a bit of experience when it comes to pack testing and maybe what works or what doesn't work or what makes a difference or what doesn't make a difference, and even having some sort of perspective on the whole thing from both a consumer but also from a researcher perspective.
All right, now, Doctor, tell me again what the doctor is. What are we dealing with? You're the father of public relations.
What we're dealing with really is the concept that people will believe me more if you call me doctor.
Oh, I
see. Firstly, let's talk about the psychology of pack changes in packaged goods. And let's face it, the pack changes usually happen on extremely well-known brands and products. In fact, there is no point in changing the packaging of a less well-known, very niche product that has very few buyers. What's the point of changing the packaging on that? Unless you think the packaging is so bad that it's preventing more people from buying the product. I guess that might be a different story. But usually pack changes happen amongst the big brands who feel that they need to refresh themselves to maintain some sort of contemporary presence on the shelf so that they don't look like the product of yesteryear, even though the products are often consumed. They're not consumed for nostalgic reasons as such, but the products are so well known and consumed so much that they do offer a high level of nostalgia and comfort. But nevertheless, the brands and the marketing cannot really afford to be steeped in that nostalgia from a packaging perspective. It probably has to keep itself up to date, and also through pressure from the retailers, no doubt, as well. The psychology of the pack change, apart from wanting to keep the brand contemporary, is really about getting what you might call a reappraisal of the product as a result of the packaging. And when we say a reappraisal of the product in packaged goods, and a lot of packaged goods, I guess, are consumable, stuff we eat or drink. When we say a reappraisal of the product, we literally mean a reappraisal of the product in the sense that it looks tastier or healthier, that it looks more of what we wanted from that particular product. So the new packaging, apart from having to do all the usual things like standing out and all of that sort of stuff, we're not going to be talking about that so much today. We're going to talk more about the redesign of the packaging in terms of the potential reappraisal of the product. Okay, so that is one of the major components of packaging redesign, especially in consumable products, fast-moving consumer goods, a reappraisal of the product, whether it be its effectiveness, let's say in laundry powder or laundry liquid or detergent or whatever. You might change the pack in order to signify something more effective, for example, or something more fragrant if you're in the area of fabric softeners or something else, for example. So the packaging or the modernized or the new packaging really needs to create a certain level of reappraisal of the product before we can say that is a successful repackaging of the product. Now, I'm not saying that is the only purpose of repackaging, but especially in the products that we're going to look at, this kind of packaging is certainly about a kind of reappraisal of the product, or hopefully a reappraisal of the product. And the other thing we also want to look at with packaging is its real life effect, which is, it is one thing for us to look at packaging on this screen and talk about it. It is another thing to look at that same packaging at the point of sale where it is actually bought, which is what we call the reality of the situation. And so we will also look at it from that perspective as well. 2025 saw a few pack changes within the realm of packaged goods, where, of course, where most packaging changes probably happen, packaged goods, packaging, stands to reason. And there were some very interesting pack changes in 2025 that were highlighted recently on some social media stuff. Just talking about how much they liked this new packaging. So I thought we might have a bit of a look at this new packaging and look at it through a kind of a researcher eye, not necessarily through a design agency eye or a marketing eye, but through a researcher eye. And of course, having said that, we have no research to back up what we're saying here today. It is purely an observation or a reaction. Let's have a look at that. So the first one we want to look at is this packaging here from Aero, and I will also bring it up on my screen as well. So I've got a reference point. Okay, so here we've got old. It's not that old. It was probably just there last year or earlier this year, and it changed to this new packaging rather recently, I believe. So, look, full disclosure from myself as both a consumer and a professional and as a researcher, I'm a huge fan of the Aero chocolate bar, have been since I was a kid. It undoubtedly has to do with the textural component of the chocolate in the Aero. It is unique. It is a unique textural chocolate experience, very distinctive, which is probably why it's been around for this long and has this much flexibility that it can incorporate new flavors and get some trial through that mechanism. So for me, this is an extremely distinctive product. And disclosure, as professional, I have worked many times for Nestle in Australia, has probably have many of researchers of my generation who've lasted this long. They probably have done work, probably considerable amount of work for Nestle over the years. So with all those full disclosures out of the way, let's have a look at this redesign and what in fact it might do in terms of the reappraisal of the product. And again, this is not based upon research, but I guess it's based upon experience and an understanding of the psychology of pack design to a certain extent. As a consumer, I have bought both the old and the new pack. However, I have to say that I had no idea I had bought the new pack. I had no idea that the pack changed. In fact, I went to the fridge. I actually happened to have bought this recently. I went to the fridge and looked at the packaging, and it is the new packaging. And if someone had asked me about this, whether it was the new packaging or the old packaging, I wouldn't have been able, I would have had to say, I don't know. I'm assuming that you're asking me, it must be new, but I haven't noticed anything. It must be new because you're asking me, but I actually haven't noticed anything at all. Now, of course, when I look at it side by side and we do Where's Wally, I can see that there are differences. There's now chocolate bubbles, I guess you might call them, as well, not just minty bubbles. The product depiction is a bit bigger. The Aero logo is the same. The mint looks, I guess the mint font and positioning is a bit different. I guess mint stands out more, but how could you miss it? It's all green. Anyway, you don't even really need the word mint. Of course you do on there for packaging. Of course you'd put the word mint on there, but let's face it, it's the visual cue that's giving me the impression that it's minty, plus of course the depiction of the product. Now, I would say that this just doesn't, it's not worse. It's certainly not worse by any stretch of the imagination, but it's no different. It's no different. It doesn't appear to be any different. I'm just trying to be, I'm trying to be polite because I'm not trying to be negative about it at all. Totally understand the need to repackage, but does this create a reappraisal of the Aero for me? I'm a lover of the product anyway, but does it create a reappraisal of it? No, not one single bit. My consideration of the product to purchase was very high to begin with. It's still very high. I don't see how, if my purchase consideration was a maybe, because I don't know, maybe I don't like the product that much, or maybe, I don't know, for whatever reason, if I was a maybe, would the new packaging have turned me into a probably? I really don't think so. Having done a lot of these pack tests, not on this, but a lot of these types of pack tests, I don't really think that we're going to be getting a major uplift here in terms of reappraisal of the product or probably even purchase intention. It's nice. It's definitely as good as the other one. It's doing the job that the other one was doing. And it's not a big change anyway. I don't suspect Nestle would have been expecting this to make a big difference, to be honest. But before we move on to another one, let's just have a look at where Aero sits in terms of the supermarket. And we've got some footage here. And you can see that in terms of where Aero sits, it's really quite at the bottom, isn't it? It's right at the bottom of the chocolate aisle. This is hardly confidential information. It's right there for everyone to see. And you would imagine that the challenge for Aero is not really changing the pack like this, because you look at it on the shelf, let's face it, it's probably got the same cut through as the old one did. It's roughly the same anyway, right? It's Aero in chocolate and it's the green packaging with the bubbles there. End of story. So that's my identification point. That's what I'm buying. If I buy it, of course, and let's get to that in a sec, but it is on the bottom. I would have thought the challenge is to get these products further up into eye view, but of course we've got the monolith, which is Cadbury, buying that space. I just assume that they're buying it. Combination of buying the space and market dominance, I guess, is allowing them to capture the entire eye area in an example of brand blocking that is rarely seen in other categories. This kind of brand blocking, very effective. So against the monolith of Cadbury, then I guess Aero is going to be Aero, and I guess its stable of products might be relegated more to the bottom, which is why I guess it needs to stick out even more. But let's face it, the major stick out for Aero is this, isn't it? What I'm pointing to now, the price. Now, this is the recommended retail price of Aero is $7.50. And that's no different to the recommended retail price of a block of similar weight Cadbury or whatever. It's all about the same, isn't it? It's all about that sort of $7.50 to $8 mark. And the big issue here is, when can I get it on special? Because I'm not paying $7. I got to be honest with you. I guess if I had to pay $7.50 for it, I would after a while. But I'm not paying $7.50 for this. That's really the issue, isn't it? I'm waiting for it to be on 40% discount. And why would I do that? That's because I'd be stupid not to. Because like Ehrenberg Bass says at the end of the day, no matter how much I love Aero, it's just chocolate, really, isn't it? I'm getting my daily chocolate fix, and I'm not going to wanting to spend the earth on it unless I had to. And I don't have to. By swapping this out with Cadbury and even with other types of chocolate, and there's so many different formats on special now, that is really the issue, isn't it? That is really the issue. The fact that chocolate costs that much money, that we're only going to buy it on special. It's not just an issue for Nestle, it's an issue for the entire category as to why chocolate costs this much money. It is really getting into the realm of a luxury good at this point in time, when in fact chocolate used to be considered a food staple to a certain extent, and it really is now reaching the area of a luxury food. I'm exaggerating, but not that much. Not that much at $8 a block for chocolate. So let's go to another one. I'm not just picking on Nestle and Aero. Let's look at another couple of examples. Now, this is another one that came up, the repackaging of Kleenex toilet tissue. Obviously, Kleenex toilet tissue, an absolute classic of a brand, if I could be so bold as to describe toilet paper in that way. But it is. It's an absolute classic of a brand. It's a massive brand. It has made billions and billions of dollars in revenue and profits over the years, used by everybody. Sorry, I know different people use different brands, but used by so many people. There's probably everyone has bought this product at some point in time. That's the kind of product we're talking about here. This is the kind of brand, of huge brand, that gets repackaged, if you like. And this is a great example of it, where you might think, who cares, right? But of course we care. Everything requires some sort of packaging, and we'd be stupid to think that this toilet paper packaging isn't telling us something about the product. But that's not what we're here to discuss here. We're here to discuss, has the packaging created a reappraisal of the product? And when I say a reappraisal of the product for Kleenex toilet tissue, what does that mean? Does that mean in terms of its cleaning effectiveness? Does it now look as though it's going to maintain and enhance that cleaning effectiveness, and in fact keep that leading edge cleaning effectiveness over other brands of toilet paper as well? Because I guess that might be the Kleenex position. Comfortable and effective, I guess, might be its position. Now, has the new packaging done anything to reappraise that? It's very hard to say, isn't it? Because obviously a couple of things have changed. The way they changed the logo from a kind of a what is it, from negative to positive in terms of you know what I'm trying to say here in terms of the logo, in terms of the lock up there. They've changed that around, but it's still obviously Kleenex. There's more of an emphasis on the toilet paper itself, the toilet tissue itself, which is the ripple, which is interesting, although did we not know this anyway? A lot of the information is exactly the same. It's just been the hierarchy has changed. Complete clean is now bigger, and clean ripple, I guess, is there, but it's somewhere else on the pack. And the packaging has changed. Again, it's reversed, hasn't it? It's gone light in the middle and dark on the upper ends. Again, I buy this product loyally. My household only really likes this toilet tissue product. And did I even notice this? No, I didn't notice this had changed at all. Doesn't make any difference to me whatsoever as a consumer, whether this has changed or not. I know it's the same product. It doesn't look as though it's been enhanced in any way. It looks as though it's exactly the same product. I didn't even notice it. But I do understand that recently there was a fight in some supermarkets over the new packaging, in the sense that some consumers absolutely demanded that they wanted the Kleenex in the new packaging, not the old packaging. I believe the police had to be called. But there are some things even that the new packaging is not really telling us, to be honest. The old packaging is telling us that it has a percentage of recycled plastic, but the new packaging does not say that. I guess we just assume that all that plastic stuff is sustainable recycle. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It's toilet paper. We're chopping down forests to make this stuff. It's very important to our lives, obviously, in a strange way. So, yeah, I don't know. Again, I think this is an example of I don't really see how this could have made a significant reappraisal of the product. And again, let's look at the reality of the toilet tissue aisle. Obviously, Kleenex is pretty dominant. The other brands are pretty obvious as well. However, now we've got both the Quilt and the Sorbent as acting as competitors as well. One thing I did notice as a consumer when I was looking at these in the aisle was that Kleenex packaging now looks a bit more like the competitors. It's got the dark blue strip on the top now, not in the middle. Like it actually looks more like Quilton or Sorbent. So it stands out less in the category. Maybe that wasn't a good thing. Maybe they were losing market share. I don't know. You usually try and buy this on special as well, obviously, but I don't brand swap. I kind of format swap. So you're buying sometimes the big packs on special and sometimes the double length 12 packs on special. You see what I mean? So you don't really have to swap brands in order to value shop at Kleenex. They keep you inside the brand by creating value in the different formats for you. This happens also in chocolate, I should say. I should have hastened to add, back in chocolate, they do it as well, providing value in different types of formats to give you value choice. When you think the block's too expensive, you might buy the bits or something like that. So it's the same thing here. When you think you're not getting great value for the big purchase, you're going to look for better value for maybe one of the smaller purchases and maybe get a couple of those, or whatever the case may be. You get my drift. And now I'd like to show you a different example of a product that I think has created a positive reappraisal of the product, and that is Sara Lee. And the Sara Lee story with packaging is rather interesting, because if we look at what we call the old packaging, which actually wasn't that old at all, it was launched only 3 years ago, 2022, which is where this ad is from. The new look, same delicious taste. New look, same delicious taste. I haven't got the one that it replaced in 2022, but okay, that's too long ago. Who cares? And in the space of 3 short years, which is not a very long time, although I don't know, maybe packaging does change every that often nowadays. In the space of those 3 years, it went to a pretty radically different pack change, which is this one here. And this is so radically different from its previous packaging in terms of its visual impact, but entirely identifiable as the Sara Lee product. But of course, they've really just honed right in on the brand mnemonics, which is that deep passion, what I call that passion red. which is really good color for dessert, isn't it? It's because dessert is, of course, that treat, that pleasure. You inject that passion, that richness that this brings, that this red brings in a flavor richness to the product, which in my eyes, in my mind as a consumer, is generating a positive reappraisal of the product itself. It is not necessarily telling me that the Sara Lee cheesecake or whatever has changed, but it is highlighting the depth of its flavor, highlighting the pleasure involved in consuming the product, the pleasure, the passion, all of those sort of things, all of those little sensory impact. So very big sensorial impact in terms of the pack change, which I suspect does positively create reappraisal. And if you look at this in real life, in a notoriously difficult area like the fridge, it sticks out very well in terms of its competition. And I imagine that this previous white packaging may have actually disappeared inside the whiteness of the fridge. I can understand actually why they might have wanted to do this, and because it is so radically different, they definitely something definitely wasn't going right. I would imagine that they chose something that's radically different that really makes the product stick out in reality in the fridge, and at the same time worked as an interesting positioning device in terms of highlighting the sensorial element of the product. So we'll end on a more positive note there in the sense that the Sara Lee product has created a sensorial positive reappraisal. So we will leave it at that today. Thank you again very much if you've watched this far, and we will speak again very soon. Goodbye.